Okay, hope everybody took a quick break there. Now we're going to go ahead and start progressing pretty fast. Now that we've had the base of our coaster set, this lesson should start to rapidly pick up. We're going to go ahead, select one side of the tubular track, holding Control. I'm going to go ahead and select the other. That grabs them both at the same time. I can simultaneously apply a modifier of extrude to both of those, and notice it automatically inherits the same extrusion amount that I had with the bottom. That's very important because we want this thing to perfectly line up. When it bends, we want the same amount of segments and the same amount of joints, the same length, which is going to make for a clean roller coaster section. If you did not get this, if yours does not extrude the same amount, then you might have cloned this circle and then shrunk it down. The extrusion amount is based off the scale of the object. Two objects that are cloned will extrude at the same amount. If one object is then scaled, that scale would not be the same distance as the other. Same thing kind of goes backwards there. So that's why I had you draw new circles and not scale the original ones. That way that our extrusions would all line up nice and neat, saving you some time. We're going to do the same process again. This time we're going to go ahead and we're going to click, holding Control, both cross beams, again going into the Modify list and hitting Extrude. And now we have a small problem. Our extrusion kind of went the whole course of the track. Well, one, this doesn't look like a real coaster piece. Two, we could have accomplished this easier with just drawing the whole shape and extruding it at once, or even performing a loft. That's not what we're shooting for here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my Modify panel and I'm going to cut the amount down from 200 to, let's say, 10. I'm also going to cut the segments down. I could go all the way down to 1, which is going to give me a very boxy, sharp edge. The next point of the game, before we do any additions of attaching these pieces together or cloning them, we want to designate our materials. And the reason why we do this, to kind of save some time, is we want to make sure that we have the control over keeping the track different colors if you want to do that. And at a later time we can change those colors, but we want to set that now. First, make sure you're in Mental Ray. Under Render Setup, go under Assign Render, Production, and make sure you're in Mental Ray. That's going to give us Mental Ray materials. The next thing I'm going to recommend, and you can choose any form of color you want. You could put an image map on here. You can make it a glowing material. But for a realistic look, I'm going to go into the standard, open up the Material Map Browser, and this Autodesk Metallic Paint is pretty awesome. Metallic paint is going to give you a little bit of a sheen, like a metal shine, which is going to make the coaster look really exciting. You do not have to stick with these colors. You can go ahead and choose any color you want. So if I go up to blue, you also notice that you can go to chromatic or use a second color. So throw a little blue in there. And I'm going to drop that blue onto this piece of my track. I call it my base of my track. I'm going to repeat the same process. I'm going to make 2 more slots. Even if you don't want 3 colors on your track, it's still helpful to do this now, just in case you change your mind. I'll do a yellow. Second color. Throw a little bit of orange in there. Maybe drag that onto this part. And then I'll pick one final color, again hitting Standard, Metallic Paint. And I'm going to try to go with a gray here. This is kind of tricky to get the color you want. You got to kind of come down to the whites and then start playing with the values. Second color and just keep it black or dark. And that piece is going to be for my actual steel rails. Now again, you don't need to use 3 colors. You could just pick one color, but again, I'm giving you the option to set this up now before we mesh it together. And later you go, you know what, I want one color, then you just got to change all three of these slots to one color and your track will match. But you'll still have the option to maybe later on change it up. Now that we've got our colors situated, let's do a save. And now let's go ahead and start meshing this piece together. I always start with the base piece. It's in the center origin of the symmetrical piece of track, and ultimately this is the piece that we want to follow the path we're going to create our track. We want it to bend here, and then the rest of the track will bend around it. Apply the Edit Mesh modifier. Under Edit Mesh, we have the option to attach. Now this is important. At any point we did not instance any of these pieces. Everything has been copied. Very important, because once you instance an object, you cannot attach it to it itself. I'm going to just go ahead and click this, and I'm going to get this Attach Options dialog box. Go ahead and leave Match Material ID to Material. That way, this part of the mesh and this part of the mesh will have two different colors, even though they're all one mesh. Again, you're going to hit the tubular track part and just hit OK. Now, when you click off, you'll notice that you have one piece of track. It's one wire mesh, but it still obtains those colors. If you didn't apply the materials, everything would have been the same color, and you would have been stuck with only being able to keep your coaster track one color. Now, I could also go back here and say, you know what? I don't like yellow anymore. I'm going to go with a teal. I can change it to teal, and notice it automatically updates in my scene. That'll be incredibly helpful if you have the entire roller coaster done and just want to give it a quick paint job. Next, we're going to go ahead and move on by cloning this piece in an array. And what an array does is it allows you to clone the exact same object evenly spaced from each other in a series. I'll go ahead and maximize this viewport. And I'm going to use my Move tool. I'm going to come up and grab this green arrow. And when I hold Shift, that's going to set this to clone. But notice by holding on that green arrow, it's nice and straight. It doesn't move to the left or the right. And that would make my coaster track crooked. I'm going to do just a slight little overlap here, just so there's no gaps in my track. And I'm going to release. Now, whatever number I throw in here, it's going to evenly space those numbers the same exact distance from each other. So they'll overlap neatly. Again, avoid instance, stay with copy. And I'm going to go and I'm just going to do a nice even number, or odd number, I guess you'd say, of 25. Hit OK. You will now see when you back up that you have a series of coaster track here that's neatly repeating itself, evenly spaced. Now each of these pieces is still separate, so be careful when you select them. You don't want to accidentally move them. We're going to attach all these pieces together. Before we attach the pieces, you may want to ask yourself if you are extremely content with the color. Because one of the other things you might want to do, similar to like Top Thrill Dragster, where you have a red, white, red, white, red, white, you may want to go in and create that checker illusion, and you'll want to do that before you actually mesh this piece of track together. When we go to mesh the track, select the first piece back here to the left side, the original piece you want. Next, we can hit the word Attach List. Attach List is going to bring up all the objects in our scene. At this point, I only have track. I'm going to hold Shift, grab the bottom, hit Attach. And what I've done is, in one click, pretty much attach all those pieces together into one piece of track. Let's name this track now that we're done with this piece. Come over to the right in the Modify panel and call it Track. Now, while we're doing some testing here, I also recommend that you take, after you've created this piece of track, clone another piece. Again, not an instance, but a copy. We're going to keep one as a reference, and then I'm going to actually make a longer piece of track by cloning this one 4 times. So it's just keep cloning, cloning, and cloning. I will come back here. Again, using my shift and grabbing the green arrow, I can go ahead and keep this thing straight. I'm just going to overlap just a little bit at the end and make 4 copies. Same process. Take your first one, hit attach. This time you could probably just walk through and grab the other pieces that are here. And now we have a long piece of track that we're going to experiment with. In the next video, we're going to take a line and we're going to draw our actual roller coaster hills, and then we're going to force this track to follow that line. So go ahead and take a quick break, and then when we return, we're going to go ahead and process the actual lines and using the modifiers to get this to work.